Real change takes time, and it's a process, and that's exactly what this is. It's a process, and we're going to go into that maximum level of force and then slowly back out of it. And the date that it won't affect us anymore, I don't know. It'll slightly affect us for a long time, probably another 100 years still. And it has been for the last 100 years. But yeah, the Mayans did correctly predict that date, and we're so amazed by it. And the truth is that our understanding of the universe, especially for this point in time, is way behind. It's because we've been lied to a lot. That said, we need to start being smart enough to know when we're being lied to and just not listen to it anymore and collectively work together to improve our planet and our species. But will it be the end of the world? No. No. I see the only plausible situation that could play out, that the world will end at some point in this, and by that I suppose I mean humans become extinct, is that somebody tries to lob a nuclear weapon, or several of them, multitudes of them, at each other. And to be honest, the beings I work with, they have the technology to intercept that. They can stop that from happening. They want us to succeed, and they're going to help us succeed. We're a greater threat to ourselves than any outside being. Well, not any outside being, but certainly most of them are to us. They all want to help. They aren't looking for chaos. They aren't looking for species to become extinct, because there's been a lot of time and effort put into humanity. Obviously, there's been a lot of lives lived, and it's been a process, and you don't want to end that process unless it's entirely bad, and we're not. We have a lot of special things about us. But that gravity is going to cause a lot of problems. It's going to be a painful process that we're going to go through here in a lot of ways. And people are going to have to adapt quickly and evolve quickly. And there will be aids there to help people do that if people want to take advantage of them. And that's sort of the key, I think, to survival, number one, and adaptation. We're gonna have to be on our toes. We're gonna have to observe and learn quick, because we're way behind, and the big day is coming. That's not gonna be stopped. It's just the rotation of ourselves through the galaxy and the way we gyrate up and down. It's time. And everything in the world is cyclical. It all happens in cycles, and everything starts and ends. And this has happened before. And last time it happened, we saw all of a sudden drawings of UFOs on the top of caves pop up. Agriculture comes up almost instantly. A mass evolution. And we're all going to go through that. And there will probably be a good number of people who don't make it out the other side within the next 10 to 20 years here as all this happens. And it'll take a while for it to all sort out. And it's going to take effort to work out. It's not going to happen automatically. And I feel like some sort of new system is going to need to be put in place here. There's a lot of fear about a one-world government right now, and I think it's absolutely necessary. And I know that's not going to be received well by most people, but I'm pretty much done with fighting wars amongst ourselves. We got to get past that to the point where we can actually work with other species nonviolently. That's a big leap. And the only way to do that is a one-world government. That said, the forms of government that we have in this world right now are just terrible. They're just awful. They're evil. They don't work. They use people. We're going to have to, I think, come up with something entirely new. And I think probably the best way to start would be some sort of, like I said, one world government, but with very, very, very basic guidelines. I think natural selection is probably going to eliminate a lot of people here relatively soon. I don't know the timeline on that, but I think that'll help eliminate a lot of problems. But I think there should be a very loose set of rules that everyone adheres to, and sort of accepts that's for everyone's collective good. And I think the forces that we're going to go through might help us as a species become good enough species and intelligent enough species to see that that makes sense. That helps everybody. And at that point, I think probably small communities is the way to go. And I think with this age of internet and connectivity, we can experiment and find other small communities and then discuss what's working with each other and try different things. And let some things do well and others won't. But there needs to be a collective understanding that violence is no longer acceptable. Life needs to be calculated before it's just conceived all willy-nilly. That's something we've been bad about. We need to make sure that we can sustain the number of people that we have on this planet. And right now there's absolutely nobody who oversees that or who even talks about how we can figure that out. It needs to be a calculated decision. And that's just logical, whether you like that or not. There's a lot of people who think that infringes on our freedoms. Well, sort of, but we need to look 1,000 years down the line and make sure that our ancestors have a future before we worry about being able to have the freedom to have children whenever we want. And that's my own personal opinion. I think everybody should be able to have children for the most part, but collectively we need to find a better way because our populace right now is on, we're exponentially growing. And we have been. We've gone from 1 billion people, I think we're at 7 now, in the last 100 years. And if you don't understand exponential growth, you don't understand the problem the entire world right now. It's facing this problem on many different levels of population. Uh, Economies are right now running into the problem of exponential growth, and it's going to hit. It already is. It's sort of in shock right now, I think. And exponential growth, essentially, things don't always go at a nice, easy ramp up. In fact, most often, especially when intelligent life is involved, they have a tendency to get out of hand and they'll just ramp up and skyrocket all of a sudden. And after that, there's always a crash. And we're going to experience a crash, and we already are. But I'd encourage you not to be scared and be more hopeful. Be hardworking, sustain your own life through this. Want to get out the other side. Want to get your children to the other side. Because those who want to do that the most will. And those people will have an incredible opportunity to change the world. But that's what 2012 is about. Those are my ideas on what we'll do afterwards. But the world isn't quite to a point yet where we're ready to start. I think individually we can all start kicking around ideas as to what we're going to do next. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a very valuable way to spend your time with your thought, because it's valuable. Yeah, how are we going to do this? Because I don't see any system of government right now in this world that's going to work efficiently as we move forward, short of an elite class and a bunch of slaves. And that never works either, because there's just too many slaves and too few. I mean, if they ever want to upturn the entire apple cart, they easily can if 5% of them decide to do it. And that's an incredibly vulnerable place to put an entire population of people, because at that point you have nothing. So, I think that's kind of be the process that goes on here, and we're going to need to come up, I think, with something entirely new and different. And the best way to go about doing that, once it's time to do that, will be listening to the beings that have already done that before. And that's the aliens. And they're here, and they're going to be here to help and give ideas. But ultimately, there is an element of personal responsibility for humanity. Absolutely. But yeah, kick it around. There's going to be a real need for people who are brave enough to step forward after some of the bad things are through here. It won't be as bad as it seems. But there's going to be a real need for leaders after that. So if you're a young person right now, if you're in your 20s or 30s, really be thinking about that. Think if you're going to be a good individual to help with that. And if you are, start thinking about what we can do. Because we're going to come out the other end of this before we know it, and we'll need that. And one other thing, there's a potential, I think, for violence and a lot of casualties in this period. I know that the beings above are going to do everything they can to prevent that. That said, we're an extraordinarily violent species, and the time, I think, for that has come to an end. If we don't get past that basic element in this change, we've set ourselves back 2,000 years. Easily 2,000 years. And that'd be awful. So I think it's time that violence, if it needs to go down in that sense where there will be a lot of casualties, and I see that as a possibility, but there are so many ways that they have still of keeping that from happening. They don't want that to happen, but that said, the population we have in this world is a strain on our resources now. They have the ability to erase memories, and they have the ability to change timelines and stuff like that. And certainly what I've been told is that if it does go down in that way, don't worry. They don't want us to have a collective case of PTSD after this. We're going to need to forge forward bravely. And essentially what's going to happen, possibly the backup plan, if it has to go that way, and I hope it doesn't, but I think it might, is that collectively our memories of it will be erased to the point that we barely recall that it happened. We just know something's changed on the other end of this, and we'll start working at it, and slowly over time the memories of that will come back, but just slow enough so that we can tell about it and incorporate it in our future folklore, and tell the price that has to be paid after a society builds up like that and is that violent for that long. So if that's any consolation, if you're scared about this stuff, and it's a little scary, yeah, it won't be as bad as you think. You just got to take it one day at a time. This is something we got to get through, and we're going to come out with a new world on the other side. Now let me make something clear with the one world government I was talking about. I'm not a big fan of the guys who are currently trying to form it, and it is happening very clearly. And if you don't know that, you're behind, so you should start looking at it. I don't think they're going